Whakataka te hau ki tu. Whakataka. Great, thank you. So we've got James on Zoom. I think, Tyler, we've got you on Zoom as well. Does I understand it? Yep, Tyler's on Zoom.
I'll be in about 2 minutes.
And we've got an apology for lateness from Jake. Don't know about Celeste. Haven't heard from Celeste. But that's okay. All right. So I'm happy to move that apology for lateness. Pauline will second. All in favour? Against? And just noting that's carried. Just noting declarations of interest for myself and Sarah on PX item 14. We'll move to confirm the minutes from the 13th of December. Melanie looks like she's happy to move that, and Phil's happy to second it. All in favour? Against? That's carried. There's no public forums, no deputations or petitions. So that brings us to item 7, Peter Ryan's report. Come on up, Pete. Thanks.
Morning, everyone. Sam, did you want me to take any particular angle on this, or just a quick overview?
I think just a quick overview would be useful, and then reflecting on, I know we talked about previously, the challenges, but put it in a bit of context.
Okay. Look, this is the half-yearly forecast. As you're well aware, I think more than anybody, it's been a tumultuous 6 months between the economy, Three Waters, the election, and so forth. Where we are now is very much steady as she goes. We are very much in the same sort of position that we would be in a normal peacetime year. We're a little bit lower than we'd like to be on levels of service, but it's still within 2%. And very similar with capital program and budget drawdown for the capital program. Most of our key goals are either on track or just a few percent off, which is sort of margin of error kind of country. I need to put that in perspective. These systems are designed to provide stability and continuity even when things get a bit rough and ready and we don't quite know the score. So Three Waters would be a classic example of that. This is no different to the results we would get at any normal period. So I think while it's steady as she goes, it's a credit to staff that they can do that when things are quite tumultuous. So I'm not going to line by line it. ELT is providing a focus on getting those last few percent around levels of service. Obviously the same around non-key capital projects. They're very close. The aim is to try to finish the year on the mark. So that's very much the sort of 2-minute overview. I'm happy to field questions on specifics though if you want to go into them. Otherwise you'll get more detail around finance and capital in those reports.
That's really useful, Peter. Thank you. I guess the only one for me, just at a really high level, so on page 19 where we've got the ones where we haven't quite met the target, do you kind of anticipate, I mean, I know we've had challenges for a while, but how do you think that will land, or do you have a crystal ball as we get closer to June?
Sorry, I don't have the same page numbering you do. Which one are you looking at?
Well, it's the first page of your report, yeah. So 3.2, where it's just that high-level summary at the very beginning. Oh,
okay. Look, I think exactly what I just said, that we'll make a push for those extra few percent.
Yep.
And that provided, we don't have a plague of locusts, we have a good chance of getting there. And we'll finish the year on target despite all the tumult of the last few months.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Pauline and then Yanni.
Yeah. Thanks, Peter. I've just got a question. It's on page 27 around the LTP. So, under internal activities. Have you got it?
Yeah, I think so. Is it the performance management reporting one?
Yes, yeah.
Okay.
In attachment A, yeah. And just saying that referring to the large number of proposed councillor amendments in the LTP.
Thank you.
That many would affect the capital program or level of service if supported, and collectively this high number of amendments would materially reshape the LTP at a late stage if supported, and would put staff under considerable pressure. Is that sounds concerning? And
I think it's a fair assessment because I wrote it.
Yeah.
based on if they were all approved. But it's very, I think, statistically and historically unlikely that 120 amendments would be approved.
And my other question is, would, if the timing of some of those changed, would that relieve some of the pressure? So
It would
rather
depend.
than
It would depend on their materiality. I mean, many of them are small. Some of them are not small.
yeah,
So it would depend on the materiality whether moving in or out makes a difference.
okay, thank you.
I guess you've got to balance that too with the appropriate input stages for councillors, because ultimately it's our LTP. So if we haven't had an input mechanism prior to that, then there's always going to be a flood of amendments if we haven't been able to raise them in an appropriate form. So, yeah. Okay, Yanni, and then Aaron.
Yeah, thank you. Had sort of three questions. One is around the art gallery, the lack of numbers going through the educational program. Now, a bit like the LTP thing, you know, we had the presentation on levels of service. We raised a number of things in that briefing, and then and then we get the performance report. So I'm just wondering if there's anything we need to pick up for the art gallery in terms of an LTP amendment to try and address the declining number of people using it. My understanding from the recollection from the LTP discussion was there was a request to how could you do more? Would it require, you know, an extra staff? How could you target some of the schools and probably the lower socioeconomic areas that weren't coming in, for example, was another thing that was raised. So is there anything we should be looking at as part of this performance report, or should we just put that to the LTP?
I guess the question would be, is the remedial action required for this built into the future activity plan?
Yeah.
Or not?
Yeah.
So that's a question for me to come back with Blair's response to say it's covered already or no, it isn't. And I don't know the answer myself.
Okay, thanks. The second question was around the sports fields.
You want to what page are you on, Yanni?
Sorry, I'll just scrolling through. Actually, I'll just go to the third question because I've got that in front of me. That's on page 29.
Oh, yeah.
Transport, improve resident satisfaction with footpath condition, and then the one following, improve resident satisfaction with road condition. The actual is I have no way to measure, as there's been no satisfaction surveys, cannot provide a response. And then it goes on, same for the comments. Remedial action, we've changed the way we deliver road repairs as the lack of operational funding is significantly impacting our ability to maintain our existing network. And I'm just trying to sort of get my head around what the remedial action is actually saying in terms of what we're doing. But this is based on the concern that where we should be renewing roads to fix them, we're actually just doing operational repairs, resulting in the road condition not improving.
Yeah, I think it's a really valid question. Lynette, do you want to?
I can answer to that. Thank you, through the chair. The resident satisfaction survey last year, there were some targeted questions added so that we could understand exactly what the residents' concerns with road condition and footpath condition were, and we could look to target them over this year. That hasn't quite been articulated as well as it could have in this report. And we haven't had the new residents survey through to see how effective those have been. So that's the action on us. We are also working hard, and the work that we've put into the LTP, we've been talking a lot about increased renewals and increased budgets for both surfacing, footpaths and generally for renewals in the transport program. So that's all been built into the new draft LTP that you're talking to. So what we will do is look at the.
So can we get a list? Can we get a list of the top? The road renewals. Like, what's the top priority for road renewals? Can we get?
So the list of road renewals, and you've had this through the chair before, regularly is published on the website. So this year's road renewals are on the website and updated regularly.
Sorry, is there like a 5-year or a 10-year program where we can see?
No, it is a much shorter program than that, and it's a program level that we plan, but the detail is much shorter than that because it changes regularly depending on clash detection with other works such as Three Waters works or utilities works that are happening in the road.
Right. So is there any ability for us to see where the complaints are coming from around things like road or footpath condition, and then see where those things fit in terms of priority?
Through the chair, I'll have to come back on that one.
Okay. And the third or the second question from me was the regional sports organisation satisfaction with the council's sports services.
What page are you on?
This is on page 27. I was just wondering if we could kind of, the satisfaction is less than 75%. It says below target last year, although we're not told what the below target percentage was. I was just wondering if we could get a memo, or in terms of sports portfolio, I'm happy to meet with staff and just go through what's happening in that space. But I am concerned, given that the winter sports season is coming, that we do make sure that we do have the sports surfaces in as good a shape as we can.
Peter, is that something you can respond to, or?
I can't answer the technicals of the question, but I can circle back and get a response.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yep. Okay. Oh, sorry, Andrew's here. Sorry, I didn't see you come in.
Microphone's on, sorry. I'll come to the front, sitting behind. I could throw Rupert in the box, be a bit mean. So, as councillors are aware, we've been doing a lot of work with regional sports organisations on the Sports Field Network Plan. And they've been quite upfront with us, and that's filtered back from the clubs about where they see, if you like, we need to try and focus our resources to get overall improvements. We're very confident with the in-housing model that we have kicking in on the 1st of July, so it won't hit the winter sports particularly until we get up and running, that we'll be able to accommodate those improvements. They're relatively subtle things around frequencies and focus on the maintenance side, and of course they're very aware of the Sports Field Network Plan that's up with our marketing team for its final drafting that all councillors will see very shortly, and that has an alignment to what's in the draft long-term plan around where we look to go in the longer term as well. So we've got a shorter term focus that'll be driven out of Rupert's team once we take over the maintenance, and I won't get into all the detail now, but it's in essence it's about a much sharper focus on that element, those basic elements that the sports are looking for. So yeah.
Thank you. That's really useful. Next, I've got Aaron and then Phil, and I don't know, and Sarah. Yep.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. So mine was sparked by Pauline's comments and questions, because I hadn't looked at it that way. But the LTP process that we've gone through, and I think it was more in depth in the last year than ever I can remember, and so we've walked through the process really well. Were you surprised that there was, given the current economic climate and the so-called cost of living crisis, that there might be 120 additions to the LTP?
I'm not surprised by much around the LTP, but it's certain.
They are not words of comfort.
It's a bigger than usual number by some margin, so I guess that's unusual.
Do you have any idea why that may be? Because I was surprised as well. Do you think the process that we've been through, where we did all of those workshops and all that feedback, didn't work?
No, I don't think it didn't work. Look,
I'm not going to. It was working well.
I'm not going to speculate, except to say, the letter of expectation asked for a joint development process. We've been in a joint development process since July. There's been a lot of time invested, but people obviously feel that they've got something that they want to raise. So it's part of the process to cope with stuff they want to raise.
Yes, yeah. But 120 is a surprisingly high number during a cost of living crisis. You'd agree?
Okay, so next is, thanks Aaron for that. Next we've got Sarah, and Phil's actually happy to move it as opposed to ask questions.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
great. My question's on the water leakage rate. So I'm still really concerned that our pipes are leaking too much, which they are, so we're not meeting our target there. But also our data around the condition of the pipe network. So the last time I saw a map of the city with all of the different colours for sort of level 4 and 5 grade water reticulation was probably 2019 when I looked back through things. And I'm just wondering if we still have that type of data and what the forward work program is to reduce that leak, and whether we're actually on target to actually decrease the leaks.
The comment does include, I'm sure you know, that
Yeah.
the results appear to be basically annual. So there was end of last financial year, and it's promising for end of this financial year.
Yeah.
So I think we can do better than 2019, but whether we're on track for end of this financial year, that's why they're flagging amber. They're saying we don't know yet.
Yeah.
We won't know until that data comes in June.
So one of the problems with not just having annual data, but having annual data that's in June when we sign off the long-term plan,
Yep.
is that we don't have good information ahead of then to know whether we need additional budget to decrease that leak. Well, we clearly are going to need more budget to decrease the leakage rate, because even under 25% isn't enough. We need it under 20. But we don't have the data to inform the long-term plan. So are we able to get some more up-to-date information on the asset condition there and what's needed to bring that leakage rate down rather than just hold status quo?
Okay. I'll ask Brent so we can come back next time with an asset condition update, and also the frequency of the data and what it would cost to make the data more frequent. Obviously, sampling an entire network for where the leaks are is not a small thing.
Yeah.
Currently, they appear to be doing it annually. There might be a cost to doing it, say, biannually. We'll come back to you with options.
Yeah. Or doing it at a time, offset by 6 months, so that the data is 6 months ahead of each annual plan rather than at the same time, because that allows budgeting to take place.
End of financial year is not ideal
No, it's not.
for when it lands precisely at the wrong time to do your planning.
Yeah.
So-
And if we could see the forward work plan that allows us to sort of renew and upgrade those, upgrade them so that we can.
No, fully understand.
Yeah, thanks.
Probably worth, that's a good point, Sarah. It's probably worth also factoring in that asset management work that the team have presented as well, and then obviously lining in with the infrastructure strategy that we talked about yesterday, because that'll all feed into one thing. But yeah, okay, I think it's fair to say we're doing better than Wellington, but I know it shouldn't be the benchmark. Shouldn't be the benchmark, should it? Okay, so Phil's any other questions?
Just a quick observation, if that's all right.
Yep.
Look, this is the last 6 months of the old LTP. A lot has changed since then, but the new LTP will have tighter levels of service and a more deliverable capital program. I mean, there's been a huge amount of time invested in rescaling that whole capital program over the 10 years. I would anticipate that we'll do better simply by having tighter specs in the next LTP. And also there are changes going on in-house to stabilise and give us a foundation for improvement. So we're probably going to finish the year end roughly where we are now, but we're looking for that extra couple of % and then looking for a lift in the next LTP.
And that, yeah, okay, that's great. I think that people probably don't understand it yet. I mean, the wider public, but the changes to the capital program will be the thing that I think pay dividends.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now I've got a question from. Oh, no, I haven't got one. I've got one from Aaron, and then we'll move on.
Yeah, mine's on page 30, and it's just around our the measure of the crashes, reduce the number of death and serious injury on the local network, and it appears that the number's tracking that it will be worse rather than better, yet we're spending millions on road safety. Will we do work on working out why they're continuing, or that trend goes that way rather than the other way after spending lots of money?
So that might be a Lynette question as well.
So the question is, will we do work to work out? I mean, because you can shift the deck chairs, but do you save lives? Is essentially the question. If not, why not? Why do it keep happening, and it just seems to happen somewhere else?
Yes, and the other problem with measuring deaths and serious injuries is you can have a particularly bad year, and it makes things look odd. So we're also looking at how we measure
Over 10.
over a 5-year rolling average, which we are decreasing. So we've looked at that. So we are looking to change the measure as part of the LTP, or add the measure as part of the LTP, and show more of a 5-year rolling average. We've looked at recently, and it is showing that we are decreasing deaths and serious injuries on the network over time. But we have had a particularly bad spike recently. But we will look at it, and we do look at it, and we are trying to address those causes. But it's something we can talk to further at another session.
Because a good stat would be to see would be how many of the deaths happen are unavoidable deaths, as in they relate to the behaviour of the driver. So no matter what you ever did, you could not stop that behaviour. You know, if someone hits a post at 180k, 160k, that you can't avoid that, no matter how you design much you spend on the road. So it'll be good to see those versus the ones where, yep, all of the cycling deaths I see are down, which is great. And it'll be great that we have a target that, like one of those ones where we've not had one for this many days, and then we aim for 1,000 days and then 2,000 days, because it keeps everyone aware all the time versus the unavoidables.
So through the chair, just to finish that, this measure is quite a coarse measure,
Yeah.
but it is the DIA measure, so we are required to have it. So that's why we are looking at some better measures for the LTP that will add to the story and give us a better story.
Great, good. Yeah, thanks, Lynette. Right, I've got Andre and then Tim, and then we're going to move it on. So, Andre?
Thank you. Further to that, presumably you would have stats on whether, when you have invested on safety improvements at a certain intersection, you would then measure the amount of fatalities or accidents at that intersection after the investment has gone on that, rather than talking about figures of where accidents may have happened where there'd been no investment.
Yep. Yes, we do.
Yeah.
As Lynette says, it's a course measure that needs supplementing to tell the story. Its purpose, and it's not clear from looking at it at all, is to trigger investigation to understand whether this was an infrastructure failure on our part or human error. And it can be either. Yeah. It's not always an infrastructure fail.
Well, my point was there's also
So I don't know.
beyond the error as
Stop.
well.
I don't want to debate this particular issue. We've had an answer from Lynette, which I think is really good, and that will take it away. But I think the points you both raised are really relevant. So Tim, and then we're going to move on.
Yeah, just on the positive, I just want to say...
no. Is it a question?
So with regards to the Lincoln, Barrington, Whiteley Ave, where we have recorded there has been no single accident reported since the new setup was put in. Are there other areas that we're looking at, like Tennyson Street, where the locals were very keen on it?
So just come back to the purpose of this paper, though, which is tracking against levels of service.
Yep.
So if you can relate it to that, it is. If not, I just don't want to I don't want to use the questions to prove points if we can today. Be good. Okay, so Phil's going to move that. Melanie, you happy to second it? Any discussion? All in favour? Against? That's carried. Great. Thank you very much, Peter. Yep. Appreciate that. Rightio. Russell. You're up.
Thanks very much, and good morning all. So the financial report for the 6 months to the end of December reported a slightly worsening position for the year-to-date results of $11.3 million. There's one significant factor in that, and that's the timing of the receipt of the $20 million dividend from CCHL. We had budgeted for December. It's now going to be coming in February, we understand. So that's the sole reason for that position. So the year-end forecast is we're expecting about $6 million surplus, and after carry forwards, it'll be a $2.7 million ahead of budget. So again, that's an improvement on where we had been. So what's driving that? The income. So rates income is up a bit. Revenues through pool, additional money through the timing of the water reform funds coming through, and rates penalties, and offset by the Transwaste dividend, which was a bit lower than where we had budgeted. In the capital space, Andrew will cover that following. We're at this stage, at the December stage, we're $43.7 million below budget and projecting to be about $46 million below budget at year end, of which we're expecting the majority of that to be requested to be carried forward. being a 6-monthly report, we've got more information there in the Treasury space and in rates. And look, just in the Treasury space, a comment that should have included, and I haven't, apologies, and that is that the Standard & Poor's released their council and group credit rating review. The results of those come out on 8th of December. And the great news for council is that we retained our AA rating with a stable outlook. Understanding, as Standard & Poor's pointed out to the team when we met with them, that's in the, when you look at the background to that, both globally in the country and within the sector, the financial challenges that are around, to maintain that rating was a really good result. So that's the report, Mr. Chair, and happy to take any
Great.
questions.
Thank you very much. Tyler's got a question, and then we'll see if anyone else.
Kia ora.
And Yanni. Yep.
Cheers, Russell. It's particularly focused on the Better Off funding grants, which is just after 5.4.
Yes.
Has that been spent?
Great question, and through you, Mr. Chair. We, at milestones, we submit and let the government know where we're at that point and what expenditures, but they pay the full amount. So that amount that we haven't spent sits effectively in the reserve on the balance sheet as being refunded to them. We'll expect the funds to go back.
Okay, but it's still being committed, correct, to the programs that we've...
Oh, absolutely, yeah. We can only use it for what we're entitled to use it for, and that's the case. But what we don't spend, we will have to refund. Yeah.
Okay, no worries. And there was one more, but I can't quite find it. If you don't mind, Chair, if I can come back.
Yep. Yanni, and then Celeste.
Thank you. 2 questions. The first one, probably the easier one, but I note that we had a budget over budget because of delay from CCHL interim dividend. They were supposed to be paid in December each year, but they decided they'll delay it till February 24. Why have they done that? Do we know?
I'll probably answer that if you want.
Yeah, they're good as well.
So, as you'll be aware, the new board have come in and they've adopted a best practice approach. You don't generally pay an interim dividend until you've finished the period in which you'd pay the dividend for. So it was almost unusual in the sense that you would pay it in December when actually you need to get to the end of December, collate your results, and then pay it. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, thanks. I thought that would be an easier answer than the next one. But number 5, page 43, strategy policy year-to-date result has been driven...
Hang on, page what? 43?
43. Primarily driven by savings in personnel costs due to the high number of vacancies within the units, in particular the Planning and Consents Unit, the Communications and Engagement Unit, and the Strategic Policy Unit. Given that we've got a number of outstanding requests to do things like the industrial residential interface and are told that there's no resource until we finish PC14, and given that we've now been told that there's a high number of vacancies and we have available budget, I've put forward requests if we could hire private consultants to progress the things that we have raised around this table with formal council resolutions and haven't had any response. How can we get action on the things that we've raised around this table in a unit that's got a high number of vacancies but got budget to spend?
I never thought I'd hear you say private consultants and hiring them in this chamber. But
I'm happy for us to employ our own staff.
Yeah,
but it's the frustrate. Like I've just had another media inquiry over the. Yeah. There's been another fire in Bromley.
I think good point. I think Lynn has probably got an answer to that.
So, Councillor, the reason for the higher than usual number of vacancies in the strategic policy area is in the asset management space. So we are intending to recruit for those starting in February. The reason for that is to address and ensure that our asset management systems, data and processes are fit for purpose. We have not done that recruitment yet until we had a very clear understanding of what structure was required and the skill sets required. So that will be progressing very shortly.
How many short we are in the Planning and Consents Unit?
We might need to come back to you.
We will have that through you, Mr. We will have that data. We can come back.
Right. And what's the process for us if we're frustrated that things aren't happening because we don't have the staff to get things happening?
So can I just clarify, the consenting area is being covered by overtime, so that we have a number of staff that are doing overtime, voluntary overtime, to make up their thing, so no work's actually being delayed. So the work is being caught up by overtime and by some contractors. So we've got a mix of contractors and overtime to cover the vacancies. So the vacancies are being covered.
Right. So, but the key question remains is we've got resolutions around this table to get stuff done. We're told that there's no resource. We've clearly got budget, but we don't have capacity. How can we spend that budget on meeting the things that we've agreed?
So unless I missed something, didn't Lynn just say that the staff vacancies are not related to the particular area of work you're looking for? So I imagine it would go back to an LTP amendment if you wanted to put more staff on budget to progress that work. Yeah. Okay. Celeste. Yeah.
It's just quick one around the better funding. There was a comment that some of that funding might be returned if it's left unspent. Where can we see further information about that?
Through you,
Mary's got
So we do have a couple of reports coming to council around the better off funding in the two areas. The LTP funding that's incorporated into the LTP for the Papatupu Runanga projects will be coming to council, and also the safety. There's a report coming on the safety work. Everything else is directly being reported to council.
And what is the approximate timing of that? Because I think we were waiting on that last year so we could look at supporting, because initially that community safety work was looking at expanding out in suburban areas, and if there isn't capacity to do that, then we would want to be putting forward a long-term plan bid.
So my understanding is that a report should be coming in the next to the next council meeting.
Thank you.
I don't think it's on the agenda for next week. I think it's the week after, the one after.
Victoria.
But I'll check.
That'll be
Thank you, Russell. I just wanted to dive into a couple of items under variance, and the first one is in relation to the rating base growth, which year to date is lower than what you forecast. Any comments on that and any concerns there going forward?
I think it's higher than what we forecast. So the growth is more. So we anticipate what it's going to be when we adopt the plan, but we don't actually know what it is until we get to the end of June. And so we try to be always a bit conservative in that space, but we push the line fairly close in the current year's plan. So
okay,
yeah, that's what that's
yep,
there.
I was reading that wrong. And then in relation to the rates penalties, where that variance is also very high, anything to comment on that, please, as we're heading into a significantly higher striking rates?
Yep.
Any comments on that?
Do you want to talk through
That section?
That might be that might explain a little bit more.
Yep, for sure.
Yeah.
Which part there?
Whether it's actually the forecast after carry forwards.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, through you again, Mr. Chair. So what we're looking through, there was a couple of reasons for that. One, rates will be a bit higher anyway. So if the rates value is higher, then the percentage of outstanding is going to be a bit higher. Also, council increased the rate. It was reduced over COVID times. We put it back to the 10% that it had been previously as well. Yeah. So I guess just looking at that section with in 5.4, excuse me. So there's two columns there. One is the year-to-date position where we're currently sitting, and the next is the forecast after carry forwards where we think that it's going to be. So that's what that's saying. So we're saying rec and sport, currently it's a $2 million ahead of budget, but we expect at the year end that'll be just the phasing of the budget and the timing of when those incomes, it's going to be 1.1 at year end, and the rating growth that's continuing to go. And again, in the Burwood landfill, just getting additional funds there. It's higher now, but we expect at year end it'll be, it'll still be $1 million, so it's still significant. And the rates penalties, again, that's a timing to some degree, but that'll be lower at year end. But it'll still be higher than when we thought it was going to be. Okay,
no,
cool.
That's good.
Yeah,
I mean, that's probably the good thing, and that's why Russell explained it. That forecast after carry forward is probably the key, because it's kind of where we land as opposed to where we are at a point in time. But yeah, really good question. Okay, Victoria's happy to. Oh, sorry, Tyler. Yep. Victoria's happy to move.
Found my other question. Thanks.
Yep.
Thanks, Chair. It's around number 5.6 in the digital space. There was some incorrect digital costs being put into the budget, which left a gap in the year.
37.
Sorry, it's 37 5.6. Can someone talk to me about that?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. Absolutely. This matter has been with council a couple of times. I think it was last month and as part of the LTP. But in essence, when the budget was built for the current year, there was a level of staff capitalisation that was calculated, and so effectively that's the amount of time that staff in the unit will be spending on capital projects. So that's what we call it, will be capitalised. That was over budgeted. So we weren't going to be able to do that, and so that meant that the effectively it was going to be business as usual costs, so they rose. So the way the calculation works is all the costs, we tally that up in really simple terms. We tally up all the costs, and then where there's going to be capitalisation, that comes off, and the balance is what is funds required, mostly funded by rates. So because the capitalisation amount was too high, we are under budget in the rate space for that. That's what that sentence is trying to say.
I see. So the last line here, it says, however, leaves a funding gap in the current year. I'm still not clear on what that means.
That's the rating. So we over budgeted what we thought was going to be capitalised. We got that wrong. So that created a gap. We'd already set the rates based on that higher amount. So there's a gap in there. That's what that funding is talking about.
No, that's great. Thanks.
Great. So Victoria's happy to move this. Tim's happy to second it. Any discussion? All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much, Russell. Andrew, you're up. So item 9, Capital Programme Performance Report.
Morning, everybody. So just to highlight a few things from the report, and then I'll go to some questions fairly quickly. Firstly, the project manager's forecast was lifted by about 28 million from the November to December report. This is largely in the transport portfolio. I'll talk about transport a little bit further in a moment. That's against a budget of 490 million. This is in the core capital program, excluding Te Kaha. Our PMO forecast remains at 450 million at the end of December, and we look at that with regard to sort of current year performance and historical performance and some of the trends and knowledge and judgment going forward. Having closed December fully and January virtually closed about today, you can probably expect to see in our next report some upward movement on that PMO forecast. We're feeling quite confident about that at this stage, so you'll see that in February for the January report. There's really two main exception areas that I just want to talk about. So firstly, to transport, the significant change there. There's a lot of movement in the transport portfolio at the moment. And we're working through, sorry, my screen was jumping around. We're working through that with Lynette and her team at the moment. So a few of the significant movements include the Transport Choices SURF program budget reduction from the government. So we've made some forecast adjustments there, yet the budget still sits in there at this stage, so there'll be some movement on that. There's been some additional funding provided by Waka Kotahi for the carriageway reseal program, and the council's taking advantage of that to increase the chip sealing and asphalt program. And just moving around the city, I think a number of you will see good evidence of that, so that's lifting that forecast. There's been some really good progress on the major cycleways routes and Horsehall Junction Road, some of those major projects, so there's some good expenditure there leaning into the next year using the bring back provision, so there's some higher forecasts and associated expenditure around that. And there's also some forecasting around one of the we had a bit of an unplanned weather event in November last year, so there's some remedial work being done around that. So there's a lot of movements in forecasting, which is a positive thing, and some good expenditure with some budget readjustments still to catch up, hence that difference. So hopefully when we report back next time, you'll see a little bit of closer consolidation and integration of that. The other main exception I just wanted to draw attention to, which was partially touched on before through Councillor Harrison Hunt's question and Russell's response just in the digital portfolio. So you can see in our report against the current year budget, there's some over expenditure forecast, and through the LTP provisions and the answer that Russell's just provided, we're utilising the bring back provisions in the longer term program of the digital portfolio. So you'll see it looking like that for the remainder of this year, and we'll be using the bring back provisions via that longer term program and LTP process to meet that shortfall in the current year budget. I've attached the watch lists, and I might, since David's given me the control, I just want to go to the watch list and cover off some headline things. Sorry. So on this front page here, we've reduced the watch list by one project. We removed the Heathcote Cycleway because it's finished. So there's 24 on here today. The red ones is a status triggered by a project manager's assessment. So I'm just going to pick a couple of examples. So the second one down, Parakiori Rec and Sports Centre, for example, has got a red flag critical that relates to the timing issue and the uncertainty around that. So red doesn't always mean bad. That's the thing I want to emphasise here. Red just means an issue identified by the project manager that we need to keep a close eye on. And with that particular project, it's a program and timing issue. If I go down to another one, just by way of example, and I'll pick, I've just flagged a couple here. About halfway down, there's the Norwest Arc, a couple of cycleway ones, Norwest Arc and South Express route, two red critical ones sitting together. That's budgetary pressure. So project managers are rightfully indicating that there's some pressure there on the cost. It doesn't necessarily mean it's out of control or anything yet, but it just highlighting those issues to be watched carefully. So I'm happy to take any questions beyond that. The last thing to add is the CRAF and SURF lists, which we report quarterly, are not in this report, but they will be in the next one, in that quarterly report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I'm actually not sure that my question's for Andrew. It's possibly transport. I'm just curious around the fluidity of funding that seems to go on with Waka Kotahi. Obviously, they've had a bit of a budget kind of pull back, if you like, but am I clear in understanding that they're putting more money into sealing and the like? I mean, why does that happen? How does that happen?
Well, Lynette will tell you how, but yes, that's what's happened.
So Waka Kotahi, their budget cycles are slightly different to ours in that they are very much on a 3-year cycle. So yes, we have a 3-year cycle where we update our LTP, but we have a 10-year program with that. They have a 3-year cycle of budgetary that's quite tight. They're getting towards that end of that 3-year cycle at the moment, and they have, and this has happened before, and we have before in the past, and we have taken advantage of this situation as well in the past. They get to the end, and the expenditure that's expected around the country is not happening as expected, and they have surplus budget available. So they have approached us and said, we have a bit in the surfacing that you could take advantage of. Can you take advantage of it? We know that it is a use it or lose it situation, so we are looking to use it.
Well, that's a piece of good news.
It is.
Good to know, thanks.
And it's through the chair, it's also credit to our maintenance teams that they have the confidence in us to deliver it. So.
Yeah. Great stuff.
That's a good question. Right, so we've got Aaron, Phil, Sarah, Celeste, Tyler, Yanni, and Mark.
Okay, so
and Andre.
I've got two quick ones. The first one's on that watch list that you were just on before, the red, green, ambers. Pages Road Bridge. Why is that? What's its red critical? I've probably stolen 3 people's question.
Do you want to answer?
No, I don't know what's red on there.
Oh,
Why is it listed as red? Is
It'll
it a
be
timing? It's
that's
timing.
It was written by someone
It's
from Brighton.
predominantly it's a budgeting thing
Oh, yes.
because of the forecast, and the current budget doesn't provide the full 63 million, I think it is. But the LTP draft makes provision for it. So the project manager is rightfully saying, well, I don't have an approved budget at the moment. I'm making a bid for it in the LTP, so I'm going to flag it red.
Right. And
until that's confirmed, and then the red flag would probably come back.
Okay, and there'd be no risk with that with the new minister for NZTA with that one, would there?
The risk is the RLTP, and it is down the chain in the RLTP, so it has reduced in its priority in the RLTP prioritisation process, and that is something that we, through the chair, we're going to come back to you on because it's currently out for consultation. So the RLTP is the Regional Land Transport Plan that's published through Environment Canterbury.
Right. But are we hearing noises from the minister? I think from what I could take from it is there might be a whole lot of things in there that he's not so keen on, but the ones like bridges and bypasses he's quite keen on.
Through the chair, that's a bit of a crystal ball gaze for us at the moment, and until we know what the GPS is, which is due to come out in March, then we don't have. We are just crystal ball gazing.
Right. Yeah. So I'm going by all his statements so far. I think it would be safe. Then the other one is any of the projects that we've signed off in the last year, like the surf ones and things like that, and we might be going to do. Is that funding locked in? Any ones that we've done contracts for or we're doing the works for, we are guaranteed that money from the government for their share, 100% guaranteed. Or are we doing some projects where we might be picking up 100% of the bill?
I think that's one I'll come back on because if that's the right chair, because there's multiple different facets of funding. So there's NZTA funding, there's SURF funding, as in the Climate Emergency Response Fund funding, there's CREF funding, and there's Streets for People funding. So we've got lots and lots of different programs of work, and it is very complex at the moment. I know that it is something that current government's focused on simplifying, so that will be useful.
Well,
I can come back and give you an
because I
update.
recall once the election had happened, the word was put out by they weren't even a government yet, but that certain projects wouldn't be funded going forward. So a number of councils had hit the brakes on those projects. Did we continue or let any contracts when we weren't guaranteed funding?
I can't answer that. I don't know.
It'd be good to know because it changes. I mean, especially the ones that are high percentage funded by the government.
So there's a paper coming to
21.
Yeah, on the 21st, which is around the transport choices and everything like that. Because I think my understanding of it, and Lynette, you'll know it way better than me, was that if we'd signed like a Schedule 2, then actually we could carry on and they'd guarantee the funding. But if we hadn't, then it would be either canned or council would need to come back and make a decision to fully fund it, unless you could get NZTA funding for a portion of it. So I think it's probably fair to, if you're okay to take it away, and that'll work its way through over the next couple of weeks.
And
we're just getting some papers
and it's only the SURF funding that we've had anything definitive from the government on at this point in time.
Right, cool. Great. Thanks.
Okay, Phil and then Sarah.
Lynette, please. Horsell Junction Road, I went down the other day and there's a lot of work going on down there, which is good. Very roughly, off the top of your head, and I won't hold you to it, is the whole job about 22 million, roughly? Is that where we're at?
What's written on there?
I'm just going to bring it up in a minute.
Okay, no, that's right. But we've spent a lot of money. How long are we going to wait until Kiwi Rail put their first peg in the ground? How is things progressing there? Because we've spent a lot of money and can't use it because they're holding us up. So I'm putting them out there, not us.
At the moment, they are still working to a program of later this year to have the lights open. But that's us working with their program. What Kiwi Rail's program? Yeah,
so it might be this year. We don't, if they're giving us a date, that's what I'm asking.
Yes, later this. My understanding is it's the end of this year. That Kiwi Rail will have these signals. That's the forecast.
Okay, so we've spent a lot of money towards it, which is great because you spend it now, otherwise it's not going to get any cheaper. But we are now held up by a government department that is not pulling their weight and filling their obligations. You don't have to answer that. Now, with this government money that has been given to us for the extra chip sealing, are we using the vast majority of that on asphalting because it's more expensive so we can gobble it up quicker? Can we please do that? Because you know what my position is. I like to see more asphalt than chip.
Through the chair, I have just about finished a memo to give you the detail on all of that extra dollars. So I will get a memo around yourselves.
That's great.
And lastly,
yes,
we are not letting any contracts out at the moment that have got speed humps or road intersections at them at the moment. That we're letting contracts, but that portion of it is not in them.
No, that is not correct.
We are, even though the government has said that they're not going to fund or do not want speed humps.
No, the government. We have had no direction on that. We are carrying on with the work that we have committed to date. The government, we haven't had that direction that directly, if that makes sense. I have to come back, but we do have contracts that are committed that have speed management measures in them.
Yep. Okay, Sarah. You good? Celeste.
Lynette, this one's around the resourcing required to deliver the capital program. Now that the transport choices, I understand we're getting a briefing on the 21st, but a number of amendments relate to resources not being available. So some of the projects that were deferred last year, and I'm referring to, say, the cycleway out to New Brighton, were deferred on the basis we didn't have the resources to deliver them at that time. Now that that program, effectively, some of it won't be delivered now, can we look at bringing those projects back?
Through the chair, are you talking about the changes with the SURF program and the deferrals that were made as a result of the SURF program? Because there is a list of 7 or 8 projects that were deferred, and that is part of the report that's coming back to the 21st.
I'm just aware that we'll be looking at adopting the draft annual long-term plan on the 14th, so we won't have that information to hand. Feedback we've had is that the amendments, some of the challenges to putting them up is resourcing, so that will be hard for us to...
Sorry, through the chair, that's a long-term plan question rather than a...
Yeah. I mean,
I guess it's around resourcing. Do we have enough resourcing, or have we got additional resourcing because those projects have been deferred?
I'm unsure of the question.
Yeah.
We didn't have additional resources because when we put the SURF program together through a decision of council, we deferred 7 projects which were listed, one of which wasn't the cycleway to the east. They were deferred so that we could build and deliver the SURF program. We're coming back to you on the 21st,
the cycleway
proposing to get going on the 7 projects that were deferred now because we're not doing the SURF. So we're switching it back, and we have taken that into consideration in building the LTP as well.
Sorry, I think my question is relating to capacity. Is that capacity now available? And the cycleway was one of those projects.
That's not a question for Lynette, though.
Okay.
But I get your point, but I think, as Lynette clearly said, when we agreed to do the SURF funding, we prioritised the program of work. Now that SURF funding, as I understand it, has been pulled, they're going to come back to us and reprioritise the work that was deprioritised. Yeah. Okay, Tyler.
Kia ora. Lynette, I won't be asking any questions, so yeah, you should stay. It's around the digital space, and I'm not sure if you're the one to be asking about this, but for me, I'm a little bit confused. You obviously know I've got quite a bit of interest in this, and the SAP program is something that I'm interested in. If you're looking at the projects 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 on the right side of that, what page is that? Page 57 of our agenda. I would have thought that all of those are SAP related. And I'm not too sure exactly what the whole year forecast is for just the SAP program, if you're understanding the question. So you've got a collation of 6 to 10. I'm not sure what the collective amount of the SAP program is that's forecasted.
It might be something they need to come back on.
We'll come back around to
okay.
SAP.
I'm particularly interested in the digital citizen experience, and I am worried that there may be cuts. I just wanted to make sure that there won't be any cuts going into the long-term plan.
Yep.
again, they can come back to you.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. It is helpful when we've got detailed questions to flag them so that we can get the relevant
Yeah.
staff in the room, because it's not fair on
Yeah, no, that's
Andrew or
cool.
Mary to they're not going to know that level of detail.
It's good
on
to
the
log.
phone.
It's good to log. We don't get these opportunities, so it's good to just bring it up.
No, sorry, I wasn't getting at you. What I was saying was that, we get the papers in advance. If you think there's an IT question, let me know, and I'll make sure I've got the relevant person so that the public can see it as well.
No worries, Sam. All good. No, that's it. Cool. Cheers.
I was just wondering, are we able to get an update on Parakurori? Like, are we still expecting it to open August 2025?
Yes, there's no change to dates. There's no change to dates at the moment.
Right. And are there, given that we've got events coming to the city that we're going to use that facility, I think the Special Olympics was one, are we able to get a memo around what the contingency planning is for events that would have been scheduled to be in it?
I think I kind of want to focus us back on the purpose of this report, which is the delivery of capital within the council. So I get that there are relevant there are questions about some of the operational stuff, but actually, you can submit them at any time through the office of the chief executive. The team will come back to you. But if we're really using this report for the purpose of it, it's around the delivery of projects.
Yeah.
So have you got a question on the delivery of a project? That isn't Parakurori.
Well, when are we going to next be updated on Parakurori? Are we going to have Ropinga come and talk to us again at some stage?
We can provide advice. It's probably as easy to do it by memo as it is by a presentation, because there's no real change on the last information you got, but we'll definitely get you an update.
Right, okay. I think that would be useful. I was just interested in, it's a bit like Celeste's question. I'm trying to comprehend how we deal with the craft, the surf, the transport choices, and the LTP. And I'm concerned that we're not going to get enough financial information around the implications of the craft projects, for example, in terms of updated costings, or the impact with the surf and transport choices funding being deferred because there was a crossover of some of the projects from craft were put into transport choices, which are now no longer going to be funded. So when is the earliest we could get that information ahead of signing off on the draft LTP?
So my assumption, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that in order to make the decisions on the 21st, we're going to need a holistic view of that whole program anyway. So my expectation it'll be in that report.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to understand.
Is that a fair thing, Mary? To all of
Yes,
it?
yep.
So that signing off on the draft LTP will have that information?
Yes. Yes.
No,
Through the chair, surf was only for this financial year, so it didn't have an impact moving forward.
Yeah.
So the problem is that there's a number of craft projects that were defunded and put into the transport choices.
Yeah.
There's now not getting funding. So
That will be covered in the report.
and
So
okay, and there's a number of craft ones that my understanding is that the cost of delivering those is now going up and up and up. So if we wanted to put amendments to the LTP to get some of those things funded to address the budget shortfalls, how can we do that?
We'll come back. There's some things where formal reports are due a few days after that we actually may have the information that you need to be able to for the draft. So we'll work that on. We'll talk about how.
But
we
I get
can
you.
put
You kind of want a holistic view of all of that stuff to make sure that we've got the necessary budget to do it, and we're very clear with the community on stuff we aren't delivering.
And the only other question I had was I'm trying to understand all the money that government gave us around PT, and then we see that there's a bus priority lane that's listed as read critical and is value engineered. So do we have a sort of, is anyone able to explain
What
the money
page are
that
you on, Yanni, for?
Sorry, that's the Lincoln.
It's Lincoln Road.
It's the
Curlitz to
Lincoln
Wright
Road.
Street,
Can you
Right,
answer that?
Curlitz to.
I think Lynette's got an answer for you there.
So it is listed as critical, and it is listed as critical on timing because there's quite a significant property purchase. It's my understanding. And detailed design challenging.
So there's still some
So
value engineering to work through.
The financials are listed as red as well.
That's correct. Yep.
And there's a budget shortfall for this project. But what I was just trying to understand in terms of the government funding that they gave us, or they announced for public transport, is any of that funding able to be put into this?
I don't think that funding exists.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it was a press conference before the election that didn't go to cabinet, as I understand it. But, okay, next up is Mark. Yeah.
Thank you. You might be able to enlighten me here, Andrew, perhaps Matatiki the opening date. Have we come to a conclusion around that as yet?
I'm here. Thank you, mate. Hi. We are looking towards the end of April, but we haven't cemented an absolute date yet. We're just working through a few operational issues, and we should be in a position within about the next 2 to 3 weeks to confirm that opening date.
Excellent, thank you. And then, Lynette, hope you didn't go too far away.
Sorry, you did say so.
Thanks to the Mayor for asking around the Hallsville Junction Road extension. Of course, that's our perennial Kiwi Rail relationship and delivery problem there, I think, isn't it?
Through the chair, Hallsville Junction Road, we are working on delivering all of the sections that we can until the signals upgrades are done, and they are done, and the track upgrades are done, and they are done by Kiwi Rail, yes.
Yep. Cool. Remaining on Kiwi Rail, the South Express MCR, I notice here that there's work being started with Kiwi Rail around the Parker Street crossing design and safety measures.
Yeah.
So presumably that will simply be on the approved scheme design with just the single lights?
Yes, it is. Yes, and we have advised that, that we need, should the whole intersection need to go in, that needs to go in as a project in its own right. And so we need to put that in the LTP in a project in its own right.
Okay.
Will be much more complex than the work that is to go ahead just to get the crossing parallel to the railway line.
Right. So would I be right in understanding this is kind of for the community's benefit, that we'll be aiming to try and get a project into the LTP for that full intersection treatment, and that the single light for the cycleway is likely to be put in the interim just to get the cycleway in, through and operating?
Yes.
Cool. Thank you for that. Then the other question I've got is around Barter Road through to Kirk Road intersection. That's sort of one of the next cabs off the rank. Do we know what sort of timing we're looking at getting that out to pricing, tender, and then
I think that's
delivery?
probably a detailed question if you can come back on.
Yep,
yeah, that'd be good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Andre.
I'd like to withdraw my question, please.
Anyone else would like to withdraw their question? No? Victoria? Yeah.
Thank you. Chair, just sorry to come back to Parakiori. Can I just check, please, that the overall status marked as critical is in relation to timing and not funding, because I understood that our contribution is capped. So is there any risk to us from a funding perspective, or is it just simply timing for ultimate delivery of the project?
We've had no indication of financial risks to us for that. So the Crown are meeting their obligations.
Okay, so to translate that, are we still capped on our contribution, and there's no currently expectation that we're going to be adding to any of that project? Thank you. The second question was a supplementary to the very first question by Councillor Barber for Lynette around the additional ceiling projects, when you said that there was excess budget available and that you're pleased to be able to help with spending that money and resealing, and that you were confident that you can deliver that. We've had a real focus in the last year about deliverability as well as affordability. So if we're taking on all this additional work at short or little no notice, has that impacted your existing program of work with other things not being delivered, please?
No, it's being delivered by the maintenance teams, not a capital. It's not a capital project as such. So it's work that's delivered by the maintenance teams, and they have gone into the process of figuring this out. And the request did come through late last year, so we've been working over the Christmas period, figuring all this out. But they know that it's additional, so the maintenance teams have been able to gear up to do it.
Great. Phil?
This is not you, Lynette.
I've got one for you after that, though.
All right. Just talking about the stormwater thing at Anzac Waitaki Stop Bank, a place close to my heart. It's on page 82, please. So the whole forecast budget is around 16 million over a number of years. Have I got that right?
Correct. Yep, you're reading that right. Yep.
So to date, we've spent about, we'll say, 2.5-ish. Is that right?
To date, we've spent 1.1.
Oh, okay.
Financial
I'm looking previous.
4 years dashboard there.
Okay, 1.1. How is the... I understand there's a lot of stuff being taken away because it was deemed to be contaminated. How much over budget are we on this? I don't expect you to tell me now. I just want to know. We must be over budget. I'm surprised that we've done so much work down there and it's cost so little. How's that?
I think that's probably one we can. Oh, at least you want to come up. You can.
Gavin may be able to answer it, but otherwise...
Yeah. I don't want to put you in the spot, but I know there's a lot of extra stuff seems to be happening down there.
There's been very little physical works done to date. So the main part of the project has not started on the ground for the Anzac to Waitaki.
That's the ponds, so to speak.
The stop bank.
The stop bank's built.
This is Waitaki. This is from Waitaki to Anzac. So it's a different project.
Oh, sorry, I'm misunderstanding something. So where's this one?
It's from. I'd have to come back to you.
There's one happening at the moment, right now.
Yeah, so that's Waitaki.
Yeah.
This is Anzac to Waitaki. So the IRC is broken up to a number of different projects.
Right. So it's from Anzac Drive to where the Waitaki one finishes at the moment.
Correct. Yeah.
So
it
if I
goes
want
past the Jack
information on where
Hinton Memorial.
Waitaki itself is at, I'll go offline.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry for that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Project. Yeah.
Great, thank you. That's brilliant. Lily, I've just got one, and it's around the major cycleway, the Norwest Arc University to Herwood. Am I reading that right? So the budget's 15.1, but we're forecasting at 32.7. Is that?
That's.
I'm on in 71.
I have no doubt you're reading it right.
Well, I'm hoping the information's not correct.
Yes, you are reading it right, and we are working through that at the moment, trying to figure out how the number came about. So it is incredibly large.
Yeah, that's 17 million overrun, eh?
Yeah, and that is us flagging there is a funding issue. We also have to come back to you on a notice of motion piece of work for that piece on Aorangi Road.
When we come back on that, could
we are looking to get you some very detailed information on that, and we wouldn't move forward.
Yeah.
We will not be moving forward. Should the number be in that order, we will not be moving forward without having come back and spoken to you.
What would be really good when we do that is to take into account lessons learned on previous projects and kind of work out how we got it undercooked at the beginning, if that is the case. I mean, if the price is the price, it's the price. But actually, that's not the decision we made at the time. So I would be like the lessons that we've learned on other ones, if they can be factored in when we do that work, that'd be great.
The initial work is showing through the chair that initial work is showing that drainage is a big factor in that area, and we do know that from the type of area it is, and it's all deep dish. But we're still working through it. It all sort of popped up just before Christmas.
Okay, yeah, because that's a massive overrun.
Yeah, and it's not. It's by no means a set number at the moment. That is not.
Yeah. All right. So when that comes back, if we can have the lessons learned from other stuff,
we will do that.
I'll probably watch that one like a hawk now, given it's in.
Yeah, good to know.
But they're going to come back to us with detailed advice. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Yanni.
I want to check the Pages Road Bridge. Just trying to understand who made the decision to deprioritise it as part of the regional land transport program.
Sorry, what was the question?
The Pages Road Bridge.
Yeah.
Like, we heard that it's been moved down the priority in terms of the regional land transport program, and I was just wondering, like, who makes that decision, and why do we as council not have an ability, or do we have an ability as council to challenge that, move an amendment? Just trying to understand how a project that for some of us is really significant, a lifeline project, can be deprioritised.
So through the chair, can I take a couple of minutes to give a bit of context?
Yep.
Do you want me to do that, or would you rather I do it offline? I can do it offline.
Well, I mean, I think okay, if you want to go through it now, then it's
literally 1 minute. Our LTP, for everyone's information and the public's information, our LTP feeds into a regional land transport program. So our transport program is picked up and we picked up version 5, and it's put in with all of the other councils in the Canterbury region, and that is then published as the Regional Land Transport Program, program, and the Regional Transport Committee, of which the Mayor sits on to represent us, and all mayors sit on, they agreed a prioritisation tool for that, for the current RLTP. That is currently, over a 3-year period with changes in GPSs, the priorities shift and change. So yes, it's an important project to us, Pages Road Bridge, but in the big scheme of it, when in the regional scheme of it, when you have a new bridge across the Ashburton River, you have the PT programs coming in and changing priorities through the GPS, those priorities change over a 3-year period. The last RLTP, it was the number 1 priority for the region. It is number 11, I think I wanted 12, I think I want to say, 11 or 12. This time with that priority, you do have a chance to make a submission. We do have a chance to make a submission on that RLTP, so we will come back to you on that process.
So I think it's fair to say we'd like to make a submission on that.
Yeah, I could see that from the...
Yeah.
And can we get the community making submissions as well?
The community can make submissions.
Okay,
It's out
great.
for public
But
submission.
then, like you said, so I won't drag it out, but there will still be a lens put over it when the government revise the government policy statement, which may actually bump it right to the...
Which may change it again.
They might go PT future, I'm just speculating, they go down, bridges up, so... Okay, thank you. Yes, and then we're going to move on. So Celeste, Aaron, and then we're done. Yep.
Thank you, that's really helpful. In terms of, I'm aware there is a potential budget shortfall for the Regional Land Transport Plan. So I just want to make the comment that the higher up it is, the more likely it is to be funded. It's not really a question.
That's a very useful question. Aaron, and then we're going to finish.
Yeah, and I think your crystal ball might be right there, Sam. The so the question's almost to the Mayor around in any meetings you've had with the new minister, have you mentioned the Pages Road Bridge, and will you be mentioning it in future?
I haven't mentioned the Pages Road Bridge at first, but I have been talking about Kiwi Rail rather hard.
Right, so next time you speak to him, you mention that bridge as well.
No
Thank
problem.
you.
Very good. Excellent. I suspect that'll probably bump it right up the list. So we'll. So Aaron's happy to move it. Kelly's happy to second it. Any discussion? All in favour? Against? Thank you. Thanks, Andrew, and thanks, Lynette. You've been put on the spot today, but I appreciate your answers. That's great. Okay. So the next one is a formality. Phil's happy to move it. Melanie's happy to second it, and Mary, you're comfortable with that?
Now we ask it.
Okay, so anyone got any questions? All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thanks, Mary, and thanks for that additional work. Okay, we've got Takaha here, so come on up, team. Sorry to keep you waiting, but thank you for coming in. Really appreciate it.
Over to you, David.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Thank you for inviting us to your meeting. You've got a report which was prepared and presented to you, I think, in front of you, and really it's probably appropriate for me to just talk to or just highlight some of the components within that. The most important part being, and which is something that people generally like to hear, is that there are no current issues with the project that council needs to be aware of or worried about. We are continuing to track on program and on budget. We had a board meeting last week, and the project director from B6 WATPAC joined our board and gave us an update on issues they're facing currently, on their programming and various things. And so we've got an ongoing, very transparent and good relationship with our design and build contractor. We have been maintaining a strict control on the project contingency, which is within our project budget and separate from the council's own contingency. And we've been managing the risks that we're responsible for under that contract quite carefully. In many cases, the risks haven't eventuated, or they've been managed in such a way as to not require as much money spent on them as we had at first feared. What that's done is allow us to have a review of the contingency within the project budget and add in the replay screens and ribbon boards, which obviously have to be part of the ongoing operation of the facility, and some gender-neutral toilets. So they've now been funded and approved by the Te Kaha Project Delivery Board. The ribbon boards and replay screens were originally hoped to be provided through a commercial arrangement with Venues Otatahi, but they've been to the market and that hasn't been possible to eventuate. So that's why we've brought them into the project contingency. And as I said, which has the capacity for that. With respect, I guess, to the other things that are of high interest to the council, we continue to have quarterly community meetings. We hold them at the temporary cathedral. We invite all the local community to come in. B6 Swap Pack and us, the project team, provide an update on what's been happening and what's proposed to be happening on site with the project over the next period, and answer questions and chat with the locals. Sometimes we get as many as 7 there.
Are you one of them, Jake?
The detailed design of the building has taken a bit longer than was anticipated, and this hasn't caused problems with program. It just means they do different things in different sequences. With the completion of that design almost done, I think the last building consent was submitted in January. So there's one to go. So second to last one was submitted to council in January on time, and we've had a very good relationship between us, the council officers, and the design build contractor in terms of processing all of those consents and dealing with any questions. We've now received from the building contractor, as a consequence of that design being sufficiently advanced, a first draft of their sustainability report measuring carbon inputs into the building throughout the design phase. The technical information is with us, but they have yet to add some further analysis and graphic representation of that, but we're having a look at that, and we expect to be able to report to our board and to this council and provide a copy of that report in the near future. Other areas with respect to sustainability are measured frequently, and B6 Swap Pack report to us on a monthly basis about a variety of targets in terms of efficiency of use of water, fuel, energy on site, employment of and engagement of local contractors and those sorts of things, and they are achieving or bettering their targets in those respects. Those are the key points out of the report that I wanted to highlight, but happy to answer any questions or endeavour to.
Thank you very much for that, David. I think we've got a couple of questions.
You've got a video, a drone video as well.
Oh, drone video? How do we do that?
Oh, great. The only thing before we play that.
Sorry, yeah, we take drone footage of the project every 2 weeks, and it gets updated onto the website and handed out to various groups. I suppose the other thing I could add is that since the Christmas break, we've had a lot of media interest in the project. Just over the last week, Kent's been on Breakfast TV. I did a radio interview last week, and there's been some print media queries, and all of them are opening with questions like, how's it going? It looks great. So we're not getting bombarded with concerns. So here's the drone video now. So this is looking from the, let me think, where are we? Southeastern corner. So you can see the first on the very left, that sort of triangle of white. It's what's called a radial truss. It's the first one of, I think, 42 or something that will go around the building and serve the purpose of holding up the roof.
I understand the roof in the centre also is that 14 metres higher than the top of that truss.
That's about right, isn't it? Yeah, 11, according to Ken. I have been asked by a particular construction company whether there are any other cranes left in Christchurch that they could hire. I think we've got 7 of those cranes on site at the present time. So putting up those radial trusses needs 3 cranes at once, holding different bits. We were talking. We had breakfast at B6 Watt Pack this morning, and they've been reviewing the manner in which they are put up and seeing how much more work they can do on them on the ground before they put them up. So there are a couple more on site, but they're still working on the methodology. So you can see there that some of the concrete form for the seating is in place around the bowl. That's the western side, looking from the south up the site.
I just want to say, while we are always talking about good news, there's a lot of work going on in the background to manage these risks. And the transparency with the contractor is critical, because we've transferred a lot of risk over to them, but we do need to know what's going on so we can proactively influence them to achieve the outcomes we need. Right, we've still got another 2 years to go. And the area that always concerns us or worries us is program.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. So 2 years to go, there's a lot of work to be done, and there's a lot of work going on with these guys and others proactively managing those risks.
That's really useful. You probably can't answer this, but I'm going to ask you anyway and see what you can. Is because I often think about it with the structure we put in place around delivering to Kaha. I think even government are taking note now of how that can be done, as long as you've got someone that's prepared to accept the risk. At the time we signed it up, I mean, I know there was the significant increase in cost, but looking at the modelling they did it on then, that was conservative, I guess, in terms of actually how the economy's played out for the last 2 years. Do you get a sense, I guess it's probably not a fair question to ask you, it might be one for them, is are they still in a comfortable position in terms of how they're delivering it, given I suspect their expectations are probably a bit less than they were given what's played out?
Well, to be frank with you, Sam, we ask that question every time we see them, because it's really important to us to know where the pressure points are.
Yeah.
And if there is a pressure point, we want to understand what it is and how it could affect the project. And look, there's been pluses and minuses. They're taking the risk on steel prices. The final design, that roof is really challenging, right? So the amount of steel gone onto that roof and the amount of work they've done on that roof is probably much more than they anticipated. But there's other areas where they've had savings. The subcontractor market is soft at the moment, so labour availability should be really good. And they've been very careful around making sure that they, from a health and safety point of view and even from a quality point of view, that they've managed those subcontractors really, really well. So they've had pluses and minuses. They've got no control over international commodity prices, but the way we managed and set up this contract is that they could lock in a lot of that risk back in July 2022, and they have done that. But there's some risks that they couldn't lock in, and they had to take that risk. Yep. So swings and roundabouts, but
they're still
we ask that they're okay.
Yeah.
But obviously there's a long way to go.
Yep.
So
okay. No, that's really useful. I've got Sarah and then Aaron, and then Yanni.
Thank you. I've got one thank you and then a question. So first, my thank you is for working with Qtopia over getting those gender neutral toilets in place. I know it's really important that all members of our community feel safe and comfortable attending events at the arena. So that's excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Second one on the sustainability. So great to hear that report's coming soon. You mentioned the sort of day-to-day KPIs with the actual build process. Is that captured by the sustainability report, or is it possible for me to get a look
Yes,
at
it
that
is.
kind of information separately?
We get monthly and quarterly updates on those, and they are included in
Overall
the pack that goes to our board every month.
Yeah.
So
No,
we-
just is it part of the overall sustainability report that's going to come to us as well?
That's a separate one, but we can bundle them.
Yeah. If I could have a look at those, or if we could
Sure.
get an idea of that stuff as well.
The one
that'd
that
be-
relates to design, the reporting that we get each month is around site operations.
Yeah. So if you're able to report to us on both of those aspects,
Yep.
that would be great. Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. And quick comment and then a question. So it does bringing in those videos is a fantastic update, and obviously they'll be archived and people will see them in the future and it'll be cut together. We feel like the Romans in the first century as someone's to come in with a bit of papyrus.
So, good point.
Yeah,
but we're in questions.
So I'll bury my pride for a moment.
Yeah.
The question is with the gender neutral toilets. I take it they're fully accessible as well. So it's just a generic design that is fully accessible. Just that we don't then go, now we've got these other ones around there.
Yeah, no.
They just tick both boxes all the time. Thank you.
Yeah, I was just wondering, do we have a date for when the cultural design is going to be released?
Yeah, so we've, I guess for the presentation we gave you last year, we shared with you that design. And obviously we've been, as part of finalising the detailed design, we've been working with the contractor on both the facade and the seating. And I think we're pretty close to be able to finalise that and release it. So maybe a month away.
Is there going to be some sort of event to release it?
We can discuss that with Ngāi Hururi and Venues Otatahi and come back to you.
The second question in terms of the design and as it's progressed, but is there any, I still don't get a sense of any outside of events activation within the arena or on the external part of the arena to kind of raise revenue when there's not things happening, e.g. bars, cafes.
Perhaps we can ask, if you don't mind, perhaps we can ask Venues Otatahi to pick that one up and come back and formally reply to that.
Right.
Because our responsibility is to build it, and to specification and hand it over to Venues Otatahi. So we are delivering what we're asked to deliver, and they are commercialising it. So,
right. So my understanding.
So it's been asked and answered, Yanni, that it's operational in terms of actually how we run the facility. So I think we flagged it with the team, and they're going to take it to VO and come back to you.
Oh, okay. Because previously, I think the response has been from VO was that there's going to be design elements within the eastern side of the stadium that would enable some sort of hospitality offerings.
We will get that advice and come back to you.
So could I just say this? So Venues Otatahi, they attend every, they're an advisor to the board, so they attend every board meeting. They're involved in every project delivery meeting, and so they effectively sign off on the specification and we deliver it. So I think we'll address that question with them and they can answer that.
Thank you. Okay. So thank you both very much all for the team for coming in. It's good to see it's on track, on budget and on time. It's always good. So I'm happy to move that. Phil's happy to, or Tyler's happy to second it. Any discussion? All in favour? Against? That's carried. Thank you very much. Thank you. Now what we're going to do is Abby outside?
I assume so.
Yeah, so we might go into PX now and do the quick papers, and then we might... actually, we've only got two papers. One was Andrew's as well. So I'll move the resolution that we exclude the public, and knowing we'll keep Abby and Kelly. And then Melanie's happy to second that? Yep. All in favour? Against? That's carried, thank you. So we'll just arrange that. And then do you want to do you want to come and do this now? Oh yeah, we'll just do them. Does anyone have questions on the minutes? On the PX minutes? Pauline's happy to move them. Mel, you happy to second them? Yep. All in favour?
Aye.
Against? That's carried. Hey Abby, welcome along. Yeah.